No one does The King of Monsters quite like Japan. Minus One is a great action movie that balances interpersonal drama and grand spectacle. The plot's better than almost every other movie I saw this year, besides maybe Oppenheimer, but Minus One is arguably the more well-paced film.
Huh?
Seriously, it harkens back to a time when movies had universal themes that resonated with the audience, regardless of where it was made or how diverse the cast is. I mean, Minus One's full of characters that are easy to root for and relate to. But that's the thing about Minus One. It's much more than just a monster movie. Godzilla Minus One's about the travesty of war, the incredible perseverance of the human spirit, and the value of protecting life at all cost.
It's so elegant and perfect.
This is a Godzilla renaissance. American 2014 Godzilla washed the bad taste of 1998 out of everyone's brains and got audiences around the world excited about the big green lizard again. Then in 2016, Toho gifted the world Shin Godzilla, a phenomenal and horrifying adaptation that garnered more attention and critical praise for the world's biggest movie star. And although 2019's King of Monsters was creatively a mess and financially unsuccessful, Godzilla vs. Kong overcame that to become a massive box office hit that was extremely well received by both the fan base and the general audience. And now Godzilla Minus One is officially a blockbuster foreign film that performed above expectations. Minus One is a quintessential Godzilla movie, and it feels like the culmination of some of the best stuff we've seen from this past decade's Godzilla revival. Now, I'm going to avoid major spoilers here, but I am going to give you a light overview of the plot, talk about some of the major characters, and discuss some of the themes in Godzilla Minus One. Set in a devastated 1940s post-war Japan, Godzilla is at the center of a story that revolves around the emergence of the King of Monsters and the Japanese struggle to defeat him during their lowest point in their history. The characters caught in the middle of Godzilla's rampage and the performances delivered by the actors playing them are what really elevate Minus One above your average kaiju movie into a genuine dramatic film. You have a literal layer of humanity constantly under threat of being squashed in this movie, and all those characters are established efficiently. They even all have a significant impact on the story. From the main protagonist, Shikishima, whose personal connection to Godzilla ties him directly to the large-scale events taking place in the movie, to the characters Akiko and Noriko, who add a level of emotional gravitas to the story that makes the destruction by Godzilla feel devastating, to the other supporting characters, like the ragtag team of minesweepers affectionately nicknamed Kid, Doc, and Captain, Shikishima's work colleagues and friends who not only flesh out our main protagonist's motivations and personality more, but are also rich, interesting characters themselves, like the neighbor Sumiko, an embittered survivor who is one of the most satisfying character arcs in the entire movie, second maybe only to the fighter plane mechanic Tachibana, who begrudges Shikishima due to an experience during the war. Even the smallest characters in Minus One are excellent. Nothing is wasted. Minus One is a masterclass in how to effectively establish relevant, multifaceted characters that the audience can easily connect with.
All the pieces matter.
Make no mistake, though, Godzilla is the star and focus of this story from start to finish as the threat level he represents increases throughout the movie.
Are you threatening me?
It begins with Shikishima's initial encounter with a pre-radiated Godzilla during World War II, where his failure to act results in the deaths of the men he's with. Shikishima returns home suffering from PTSD, but in the chaos of a rebuilding Japan, he meets homeless Noriko and an orphan Akiko. The hapless three develop into an unconventional family over time, with Shikishima taking a lucrative job disarming abandoned sea mines off the coast of Japan as they slowly rebuild their lives like the rest of the country. Well, until Godzilla reemerges as a giant monster now capable of breathing atomic blasts. With Godzilla threatening to devastate a vulnerable Japan, the American military unable to intervene due to the Soviets, and the Japanese government's failure to protect its people, even withholding potentially life-saving information from them, the civilians of Japan take matters into their own hands by banding together to form a committee to deal with the kaiju threat, by utilizing their respective experiences in World War II to devise a plan to take Godzilla down. It's a story about the staying power of humanity in the face of adversity, people's ability to survive the hardest circumstances imaginable, the potential of human ingenuity, the value of life against the weight of grief, and the importance of learning to forgive others as well as ourselves.
It's not your fault.
But besides being a well-written story with a great ensemble cast, Minus One's Godzilla looks fantastic, and for the most part feels like he's actually on screen with the characters during the big action set pieces. It's impressive how director Takashi Yamazaki manages to make Godzilla feel like a hugely overwhelming force that at the same time feels like a personal danger that's looking right at you. As far as Godzilla's actual design goes, Minus One is very traditional, combining some of the character's best features over the last 70 years in film into one great new iteration that still stays true to form. He's as huge and imposing as ever, but in Minus One, Godzilla has a little more agility than we typically see from Toho. Minus One is capable of doing fast turns, whipping his tail around, and he's a pretty smooth swimmer too. That combined with Godzilla's near invulnerability and healing factor makes him come across like an unstoppable rampant dog, mercilessly crushing everything in his path. Make no mistake, this is top-tier Godzilla.
Pretty good.
My only criticism is that at times it can be hard to gauge Godzilla's exact scale, especially the size of his head. I don't know, it just seemed inconsistent at times, or maybe they had multiple designs in play. Realistically though, slightly adjusting Godzilla's scale or exact look from scene to scene is most likely a creative choice by Yamazaki intended to evoke a specific feeling for that scene in the film. And it's not a major inconsistency since Godzilla's size is changing as part of the plot anyway.
It's so big.
The effects are impressive, though. There's only a few shots where the CGI for Godzilla doesn't look excellent, especially when you consider the movie's $15 million budget. Come on, man, just look at the boat scene. And while I could see there maybe being some stylistic aspects to Minus One that could come off as strange if you've never watched a Toho movie before, there's nothing in it that prevents a universal audience from enjoying this quality movie. You could probably watch this thing without subtitles and still pretty much get the gist, and that's because Godzilla Minus One is a well-written movie that makes sense as it goes from beginning to middle to end, wrapping up with a satisfying third act that's full of tension because the movie made you care about the characters in it and what happens to them.
Pretty good.
This is absolutely a movie I can recommend. It's equally enjoyable for longtime Godzilla fans and newcomers alike. Best of all, it's a Godzilla movie that's made for actual adults. It's just nice to see Godzilla thriving in 2023 when a lot of other intellectual properties have been exploited to the point of becoming completely played out or worse, distorted into an unrecognizable state.
It's called capitalism.
Maybe that's because, unlike a lot of American studios, Toho actually cares about their product and values the people consuming it. Even the legendary Godzilla movies have all honored the character with each interpretation, despite how ridiculous they keep getting. And although I have high hopes for the future of American Godzilla movies, no one does the King of Monsters as well as Toho. And Godzilla Minus One proves that once again. At least somewhere in the world, they're still making movies that want to entertain us.